The autonomous tractor still has a cab on it.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because you can utilize those licenses for other things on the farm. And it's not you're turning this tractor into the autonomous tractor and that's it. You can still utilize those other pieces for planting and things that aren't autonomy ready at this point.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing because one of the demos we did, when a customer asked, like, well, this is different than one I saw. If you remember years ago, Deere had like a cabless tractor. It's like, well, I figured that's what it's going to look like. He's like, nope.
Yep.
Because most of our customers already have a tractor just like this or could pretty easily. So why reinvent the wheel? We can just add all these components to a tractor you already have on your farm and then take full advantage of this latest and greatest technology.
Welcome to another edition of the FarmCast presented by 21st Century Equipment. I'm Mike Wimoff, the Executive Vice President of Precision Technologies, and I got with me Troy Randall, our Lead Technology Specialist, and Isabel Drobny, one of our Precision Ag Consultants, located here in Greeley. And we're standing in Greeley today in front of a tillage tool, high-speed disc, and an 8R 370 to bring back a topic that we have talked about before, but really been a lot of improvements in this area and want to make sure we highlight those, and that is autonomy. We talked about this before, Troy, in a previous FarmCast. Can you just kind of refresh us on what is available for autonomy and where is John Deere headed with that?
Well, luckily, just a couple weeks ago, we learned pretty much all the details, and it will be an affordable and purchasable product for model year 26, so we can pretty much order it right now as a puck kit for specific models and tillage tools for the 26 growing season. So very, very cool. But a little background of it. So, Deere's been working on autonomy for quite a while now. So biggest thing they're working on right now is tillage. So that's kind of the first thing they're going after when it comes to autonomy and pretty much Deere tillage tools. So, and they're focusing mainly on 8Rs and 9Rs right now is the main models for autonomy, and then some Deere tillage tools with TrueSet too. So, but they've been testing it over a handful of years, and then we were lucky enough to able to get our hands on a demo unit.
And John Deere is working towards autonomy in all production steps, but started with tillage, as you had mentioned, and seen a lot of good advancements with that here just in this season. So, we now have pricing, we now have information on how to get this, whether orderable or as a puck kit, a precision upgrade kit on our existing tractor. So what does that look like?
What we're standing behind right now, is of course, it's an 8R with a high-speed disc right behind it, but is this autonomy capable right now? No, but can it be? Yes. So that's the coolest thing is we can go back to model year 20 and a half on 8Rs, 8RXs, and then model year 22 on 9Rs, 9RXs, and pretty much puck those, equip those with autonomous capabilities to already use what you might already have in your fleet to use for autonomy. So that's a very, very cool thing. Deere's put a lot of investment into precision upgrades. So being able to puck those older machines, those older tools to bring them up to autonomy is a very awesome aspect of it. And that's actually, we're demoing our demo unit here the past couple of weeks. That caught a lot of our customers off guard too, because they were expecting to have to buy a brand new tractor with all this built in. It was going to be pretty much model year 25, 26 and above, but no. Having that ability to, go back all the way to model year 20 and a half, pretty much what we say all the new cab styles. So when Deere had this updated cab style, kind of that new redesigned edgy look to it, pretty much all those newer style cabs on both 8Rs, 8RXs, 9Rs, 9RXs can have autonomy added to them, which is very cool. And then on the tillage tool side, there's a handful of tools right now that are compatible with autonomy. So be the new CC Coulter chisel. A lot of things we have around here in our area is a high-speed disc, so the new HSDs or that 2680, and then the 2660 VT. So that is all autonomy capable older models and brand new models too. So we can also puck those implements, those tillage tool implements too, with kind of the same components to make them capable with autonomy. So
awesome.
So pretty much all our demos we had, the number one implement tool request we had was a ripper. So that's a very simple, monotonous, like you said, 3 and up space, and it's very slow going, short working with pass through the field, and a lot of our customers do it, pretty much all over. So that's hopefully one thing won't happen for 26, but like I said, all the demos I was involved with, I was like, the number one thing those customers wanted was for just a simple 3-point ripper. So hopefully that's something we have for 27 with some of those added capabilities, implements and models. So
that's what I was going to add was that Deere continued to look at other models and tools, and that only provides more capabilities for our growers. You talk about upgrade kits, and what components go into that? What has to be added to the tractor and the tool?
So on the tractor side, the biggest thing is, of course, what we call the vision system. So the cameras will have that kind of, those 2 VPUs up on the back of the cab, which you might see on those autonomy ready machines. And of course that array of 16 cameras around the cab, so that's the biggest thing. But the biggest thing you don't see is we actually have to add a secondary brake valve underneath the cab just for safety reasons. So if for some reason the main valve fails or something happens, it always has that secondary backup. So that is pretty much one of the biggest and most labor-intensive components to add to these machines. And then other than that, just basic, we need G5 on the machine, we need 7500 receiver, and then we kind of need just all the other things that go along with that gigabit Ethernet system too. So very simple, and that's what was cool when we talked to customers about it too. They were very surprised how simple it was to add it. There wasn't a whole bunch of other, they figured to be this whole process, but no, it's just pretty much that vision system, some other components, and that's about all it needs. So and then the tillage tool is very similar too. So we pretty much need to update the TrueSet system depending on the model year. So with that latest TrueSet controller, just to talk nice with the autonomous system, and of course we need to have 7500 receiver on the tillage tool as well, and also lights. So since this can run at night, we have run it at night. It's pretty cool to see it run at night, and definitely adds to the efficiency and productivity of it too. We need to add an array of anywhere from 6 to 8 to 10 lights back there, so that tillage tool can see behind it at night.
Yeah, it's just like our eyes, right? If I can't see anything, and then the tractor can't see anything, it is overcautious as far as when it continues to work and when it stops. And we always joke around, if you're in the cab of this machine in autonomy mode, put on your seatbelt. So you not know when it's going to stop. And Troy mentioned the extra braking components. When it stops very hard and fast.
Yeah, Isabel, you unfortunately found that out the hard way, didn't you? Yeah.
Definitely with a seatbelt.
Yeah.
It's not feel nice.
Yeah. So if you're riding along, like I said, that's step number one, is put your seatbelt on, because like I said, it's either full brake or no brake. So yeah. So, and speak of that, you said the vision system too. So like this system is purely vision based. It's pretty much, like you said, no different than our eyes. What we can see is no different than seeing spray. It's not seeing any type of different spectrums, things like that. So it sees everything just like you and I would see. So
sure,
dust was a big issue we had this spring, but luckily through, like I said, just like seeing spray, gets better over time. This got better over time. Even the performance we saw from like this spring to this fall was tremendous when it came to dust. It wasn't really even an issue this fall when it came to dust. We pretty much, that was way down on the list compared to other things. So
yeah, we talked about this puck kit, and we said we know pricing on it. So what is the pricing model for an autonomous solution?
So that was kind of the funnest thing when we were demoing our unit this fall, is Deere actually released the pricing for it. Actually, when we were out in the middle of the demo one day, so we actually got to learn it live out in the field too. So for pretty much the tillage solution right now for both our 8 and 9 series tractors, the base vision system autonomy ready package is $40,000. And then for 2026, this will not actually have a per acre fee. It will be a flat unlimited acre license for tillage for 2026, which will be $10,000 on top of that initial tractor puck price.
That would total, if you had an autonomous ready tractor, needed the base package, that's $40,000, and then you need the annual license for $10,000. You're looking at $50,000 for the first year, and then $10,000 year after, unless that pricing changes.
So. And then of course on top of that, so depending on the model year of the tractor, so in model year 24 we did have what we refer to as a autonomy prep package for certain tractors, so that kind of helps out there a little bit too. And then on model year 25 we actually did have what we call an autonomy ready package. So a good way to tell if you have autonomy ready package, just the easiest way is actually if you have a backup alarm on your tractor, and then if they have a G5 in there, of course already, and you have 2 round connectors kind of by the roof, so that's the autonomy ready. But then of course we can go all the way back and down to model year 20 and a half on those 8Rs and 8RXs, and then model year 22 and newer on those 9Rs and 9RXs too. And then with that $40,000, that's just the base price that covers pretty much all those models. And the reason for that is the hardware is the same between all those models, so that's a nice thing. But depending on how those are models equipped, the older ones need a lot more. They need that brake valve added, so that adds a lot more labor time. So that's kind of where it's going to be a little more, cost more to get those older models depending on it. Of course, the newer ones, some of them already have that brake valve, some of them already have the harnessing, things like that, like a G5. So this depends on what model you have. It's going to depend on how much time it takes to install that kit. So, and of course, if you don't have a G5, you can get a G5 command center and 7500 integrated upgrade for $5,000 too. And then autonomy will of course require G5 advanced with SFRTK, or you can still run a radio RTK, but I would highly suggest just get that combo licensed G5 with SFRTK from machine and just be done with it. So
I think that highlights a valuable point, that the autonomous tractor still has a cab on it.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because you can utilize those licenses for other things on the farm. And it's not you're turning this tractor into the autonomous tractor and that's it. You can still utilize those other pieces for planting and things that aren't autonomy ready at this point.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing because one of the demos we did, one of the customer asked, like, well, this is different than one I saw. If you remember years ago, Deere had like a cabless tractor. It's like, well, I figured that's what it's going to look like. It's like, nope.
Yep.
Because everyone and most of our customers already have a tractor just like this, or could pretty easily. So why reinvent the wheel? We can just add all these components to a tractor you already have on your farm, and then take full advantage of this latest and greatest technology. So very, very cool.
What about pricing on the tool?
Yep. So pretty much the tool, depending on the model and the year, anywhere from $3,500 to $10,000. So pretty much just the base kit to add the autonomy prep package to a tillage tool is going to be that base $3,500. Depending on the year, an older one might need the true setup date, so that's going to be $2,500. And then you can throw in a $7,500 with or without that kit. So if you already have one, you're good to go. If not, you can add a $7,500 on with that kit too. So anywhere from, like I said, anywhere from $3,500 to $10,000, and of course a little bit of labor to put it on, but very, very, very simple on a tillage tool. Pretty much a harness, some lights, things like that. So very, very less labor intensive on the tool versus the tractor too.
Awesome. As mentioned, we had the opportunity to have a demo machine that we still have, and we'll be able to do some tillage as long as the weather holds out through the winter. So knock on wood, hopefully we can have that opportunity. But
it's 80 degrees in November.
Right. Yeah. Didn't think it'd be in short sleeves.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll start with you, Isabel. Like I said, I had the opportunity to do some demos with some customers in this area that you were a part of. What did you see from those customers? What was the feedback?
Yeah, so for the demos that we did in the Greeley area, we were able to test it on different field types as well. We were able to run it on a pivot, but then we also ran it on like square fields that was closer to a main road. We were close to a lot of telephone poles. There was ditches. So there was a lot on the outside perimeter of the field that we had to account for. We were kind of just seeing how it was going to perform. Initially with the demos, obviously when you first get there, we drove all the boundaries that day before, day of, just depending on how much time we had with the machine. Again, you have to have SF-RTK, so if you're trying to pre-plan ahead of time, if you have a gator or something equipped with the technology, you can map those boundaries as long as you have a 7500 in SF-RTK activation on the receiver. So we would spend time, drive the boundaries, make sure everything was good there. You can tell right away if it's autonomy capable or not. It'll be highlighted in blue. So we also ran into that, but we would know right away once we saved the boundary if it was autonomy ready or not. Then when we got done with that, the next step would be to create the AutoPath work plan. So we'd go ahead and preset the guidance line, the heading that we wanted, map all of that out ahead of time and save that as long as it was all correct. And then when you would go through the field, you would pretty much just set the machine up where you wanted it to start and then go ahead and click start on your phone. We would test it in the cab first, so I would just do a ride along of like 2 passes just to make sure everything was performing right, see how things are going. Again, have your seatbelt on, and when it breaks, it breaks. There's really no warning. In Op Center, you'll sometimes see a flag if it had to stop for a long period of time, just with an explanation of what's going on. Like in one of the fields, there was a lot of debris, cardboard, plastic that was in the field that it was stopping for. So some things that we couldn't even really see in the cab ourselves, but then when you look closer, you'd be, wow, there's a huge cardboard box right there that's in the view of the camera. And it would stop. In Op Center, it would tell you if we weren't near the field, it would reroute the path after 5 minutes. So we'll send an alert into Operations Center. They'll have you approve it, reroute around it. It'll even show you an image of what the obstruction was. You can see, if it could go through it or not. Aside from that, it was pretty smooth. I was honestly pretty impressed. I came back on Saturday after we had been running it for a couple days. I pretty much drove the tractor to the field, went through like Autonomy OS, which has the checklist of everything that it needs to meet to be able to enable autonomy, and got the machine going within 15 minutes. So I was able to hop out the cab, let it do its thing, and by the time the customer already got there, the machine had already completed 2 passes. So I was just genuinely impressed with how smooth it went. Again, there was fog, there was dust. I was there early, so there was a lot of it was a foggy day that day, and we were kind of just curious of how it was going to perform. But again, it only took me 15 minutes after getting to the field to get everything going. Granted, we already had the boundary driven and the AutoPath work plan created, but from once you have all that done, the initial startup was pretty quick.
Good to hear. Yeah. And just a reminder that for the when it does sense something, an object or an obstruction in the way, Deere sends those. The tractor will send that image to a third-party company that Deere has hired for trash bags, those kinds of things. Once that company says approve, it will just continue moving forward, and really there's not a lot of downtime, so to speak, from that perspective. So.
And for the 2 demos that we did, we also let it attempt to do the headland passes as well. And we really didn't have problems until it got to the outermost headland pass. Again, we were closer to a busy road, so sometimes the cars would cause the machine to stop, but it would continue right after that. But we really only had to intervene when it got to that outermost headland pass. So it was able to complete most of the time 2 headland passes, because we had it set up for 3 headland passes for the 2 fields that we demoed in.
Great.
That's been pretty similar with all our other demos too. So I think overall we've pretty much been able to complete about 8% of the field autonomously. So we can do all the main rows, but then that's kind of what we're seeing, especially since we have a lot of irregular shaped fields around here. They're not always going to be a perfect square or rectangle, or we have a lot of pivots out here. So navigating around those pivots was kind of a fun challenge to kind of wrap our heads around too, and we did quite a bit of learning there too. So, but we found it can pretty much do all those main rows autonomously. It'll sometimes be able to do that, first inside pass, maybe the second inside pass of the headlands, but then usually that outside passing gets kind of squirrely. So what we've been telling guys, for 26, pretty much allow it to do all the main rows by itself. And then, you still have to move the machine. You might have some other stuff to clean up. Pretty much just plan on doing the headlands manually right now.
It's also nice in the Op Center app, it'll send you an alert when it's starting the headland passes. So if you're in an adjacent field to continuing work nearby where you still have eyes on the machine, you'll get that alert in the mobile app of that it's starting the headland. So then you can start to make your way back to the machine to observe when you need to step in to complete that outermost pass for most cases.
And you brought up the percentage of field completion autonomously. What was that percentage again?
80%. 80% plus. So that's that was kind of our average for with all the demos. So some were 85, maybe some were 75. So it just depends on the field and conditions. But yeah.
But I think that's incredible. And I guess, Troy, can you talk about the comparative to the springtime? I mean, that percentage in the springtime comparative to what we saw in the fall, just to talk about the technology advancements that have happened over the course of 2025.
Yeah, like I said, it's gotten better over time, and it's been, luckily our demo unit, it was a night and day difference what we saw this spring versus what we saw this fall. We're pretty much learning the system this spring, got our hands on it. We're able to kind of learn, what it likes, doesn't like, and we definitely learned this spring it does not like dust. So that was definitely the biggest issue we had this spring. We had a pretty dry spring, so that's just now how things happen sometimes. Luckily, like I said, the software just gets better over time. They make improvements, and what we saw, this fall versus the spring, like I said, was 9 day difference. Like we had, dust was not even an issue compared to what it was. Like we had, I think I can count on all the demos we had, I can probably maybe count on one hand how many times it actually stopped for dust, because they've done a lot better. They kind of refined the algorithm. It's not as sensitive to dust anymore. It kind of ignores it, and then also they kind of narrowed up that window when you get to going, so it's not really looking towards the rear of the machine as much, and trying to counteract for things going on behind it. It's just trying to focus on what's in front of it, and only that, and then a lot less sensitive that dust. So that was awesome to see. So like I said, it was compared to the spring where sometimes in really dusty fields it would stop 2 or 3 times in a pass. Like this fall, we pretty much, like I said, we had 0 issues with the dust. It was we got to experience all the other kind of goofy things where we saw like a trash bag or a cardboard box or a pole or something. So, and that's and that's the other thing we kind of got to learn how it works. And like I said, Isabel talked quite a bit at the boundary, so we did learn. We had one demo where we did a circle, but right next to that boundary was a dry land field of standing corn. So we did learn that, like right now, we have to be pretty cognizant of that boundary and what's on the other side of it, because there was kind of a buffer zone. So we didn't really have a lot of chance to mess around with it, but we might have to get in the habit. Like when Isabel said, you usually go around the outside, you always want that boundary on the outside of the tool on the very edge, but maybe we might get in the habit of actually doing it on the inside. So if we're already going to do that very outside pass manually, let's shrink that boundary down, and because there is kind of like a 5-foot buffer on both sides of that boundary where that system will try to ignore everything outside of it, but that's not always the case. So we can move that boundary another 30 feet, whatever size of our tool is inside, and then just get rid of that kind of unknown that we can't account for. Just get that out of the equation. It's going to improve our performance that much, because like in that one field where we did have that corn right against the boundary, we tried 4 headland passes, but the secret sauce there was 5 headland passes, because that allowed it to turn tight enough without getting close enough to that corn on the outside where it would stop. So that was that's where we have to have a lot of stuff around the outside. That's where we might have to kind of increase that to from 3 to 4 to 5 headland passes. But like I said, every field is different, has different scenarios and situations of stuff around the outside. So, but yeah, like I said, if we were too close to a pole, I would kind of stop for that. But once we kind of learn, how the system works, we were much more successful, and it was definitely awesome to see this fall what we saw there too. And then I think we did test around a lot with the pivots. So pretty much, we came to the conclusion of pretty much when it comes to a pivot, you want to map everything out inside that pivot, including the pivot itself. I know it's kind of has some challenging aspects to it, but in some cases we kind of did half. We made a boundary for half the field and did that half and switched to the other half too. And like Isabel said, the idea is to pretty much draw that whole field out as an autonomy capable boundary. And the nice thing is too, we can kind of manipulate that, so we can never expand that boundary, but we can decrease it. So one thing we can do, and we did play around with, is take that whole boundary, take it in an off center and just chop it in half for both kind of like a north and south or east and west side, and then run that boundary, kind of as two separate boundaries in the field, just to kind of help keep that machine in that area without having to be around other objects that might not see or possibly have issues with. So,
well, I think pivots are a good example of how this system learns new things over time. We certainly ran into that issue, and been able to give that feedback right to John Deere so they can work on that. But just like our See and Spray system, these cameras on the autonomous tractors are sending those images in constantly, learning what new things look like. Easy to adjust that algorithm, and that's really how they've been able to advance so quickly with dust, trash, poles, cars. Hopefully pivots get a lot better in the future. But we have workarounds around that too. So that's a positive.
Yeah, the nice thing is too, when it comes to like if you have anything like a pivot center or some kind of a wet spot or a wellhead out there, like I said, just put a boundary around that, because we did learn even from this spring to this fall, it does have that automatic route around feature. That works pretty dang slick. So it was really cool to see, if that boundary was in that pass, it'd pretty much come up to a stop, back up a little bit, route around, put back down, and keep going without a hitch, without stopping. So when in doubt, just put a boundary around it. That way it's going to stay away from that regardless. So that's figured out. So
a lot of customers have been able to get this out to here this spring. What's been the feedback? What are the customers saying?
I guess with like our demo experiences, they were pretty impressed of how smooth the initial startup process was. After we got the machine and the boundaries and all that pre-work done, we were able to show the customer some of the the Autonomy OS checklist and a couple other things that you have to check in the display before engaging it. We got out of the cab, observed the customer, and they were able to start it on their own. So like I said, this demo week that I was participating in was the first time I got my hands on the machine. And by the end of the week, I was able to start the machine in 15 minutes. So there was a learning curve, but Saturday when I got the machine going, it only took me 15 minutes from, a couple of days of work. So once you get it going and look at some of the checklists, know some of the fine-tuning things, and know where to check, the startup process is really smooth.
Yeah, we kind of made you learn trial by fire, and you did great.
Thank you, Isabel.
You went from zero to being a master of it and being able to show the customers. Great job.
So what about your customers, Troy, the customers you were involved in maybe out east? What was their feedback just on the tillage tool itself or autonomy in general? Yeah,
very, very impressed. So yeah, we had some very awesome demos, and I even had a few customers that were pretty much willing to buy it that day or get a tractor set up for model year 26. So it was very awesome to see. So it's a pretty drastic change to how we're going to be doing tillage work or pretty much any operation in the future. So a lot of these customers really have to kind of wrap their heads around, how can we effectively implement this solution into our operation, because not every operation is the same. It's not going to fit. It's not kind of a cookie cutter solution, and you're going to have to kind of get crafty with it and think about how this could benefit you in your operation, or add more value to your operation too. But no, all the demos we had, like I said, they went very good, and like I said, hopefully we get a few of these machines out in the field in customers' hands equipped with autonomy for next year for those reasons, because our demos went that good too. And the good and bad thing, we definitely put it in some really easy situations. We also put it in some pretty difficult situations where we had our demo machine was an 8R wheel machine, and we definitely should have had a track machine out there, but we made do, and so it was a pretty cool experience there too. So like I said, out in the sand, so we definitely need tracks out there, but we do have this approved for 8Rs, 8RXs, 9Rs, 9RXs too.
Yeah, I know the feedback I heard from customers that talking to them during the demo and after the demo was one impressed with how well it worked and just how much it could get done on its own. But then secondary to that, a lot of discussion kind of just around autonomy in general and how that fits into their operation. Like you said, Troy, autonomy is not for maybe everybody in every operation right away. There's a stair step to get there, and I think this really got customers thinking about, how do I take that stair step? What's my next step? And what's most important for me to have an autonomous machine do as we go into the future and more autonomous products are available.
I'm hoping autonomy is very similar to what we saw in See & Spray. I think a couple years ago when See & Spray first came out, we had a handful of units. The next year, last year, we had, about 20 units, and then this year
54.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Yeah, so hopefully autonomy kind of takes that same evolution. So we'll have a few units just to kind of get them out in the field for 26, 27, we grow that number, and 28, and so on and so on. And the nice thing is too, like I said, we're pretty limited on our tools right now. That is something Deere is definitely working on. So hopefully for all your 27, we have some more Deere tillage tools, and then hopefully also they're looking into non-Deere tillage equipment too. So that is something that's on the radar. So like for 26, pretty much just a select amount of Deere tillage tools that are equipped with true set. So
sure.
Yeah. What was unique about the demos that we did in Greeley as well, we were also able to get in front of a lot of vegetable growers. So kind of like what Troy's highlighting, as we're getting it in front of the right customer and Deere is getting some more of the feedback of tillage tools that would work for their operations, that's going to continue to change. That was just nice to get in front of the right growers, and feedback I got from them was how fast we were able to get in the field and how it could free up labor to go into a different area where, vegetable growing can be very labor intensive, so they can kind of just shift their work into a different area that they need more help. So they even saw a way that they can apply in their operation, which was cool to see for those demos.
No, and I think that's a great point of autonomy is not here to take people off of the farm. It's allow them to do other tasks that need to be done on the farm. And, nobody needs to sit in the cab of a tillage tool right now. And if you can take that person out of there and have them be doing something more productive, that's the goal of autonomy. But autonomy really allows the owner-operator of the organization to determine where is that best need for that person. And if we can automate one thing, have an autonomous tractor do that work, they don't have to worry about that.
To piggyback on that too, freeing up labor, like yes, they might not be sitting in the cab doing tillage work, but they could be in a gator mapping the rest of the fields that tractor is going to go to, because that needs to be done. They cannot be drawn, they have to be driven. So yes, they might not be in the tractor, but there's a lot of pre-work that goes into autonomy as well that person can do as well. Diving into Op Center, understanding how to start, pause, and look at the alerts and have someone monitoring that system while doing other things. There's a lot of other components that go to autonomy that will need to be done at the farm level as well that employees could do too.
Or they could be working on the pivot on that field, or they could be working nearby or working in the next field in another machine too. So like I said, the sky is kind of limit. It's going to be interesting to see how people adopt this and utilize it and find the best fit for their operation.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Speaking about autonomous solutions, what other autonomous solutions are coming out?
Yeah, so if you've seen John Deere at the CES conference, which is a technology conference that happens every February, this last year introduced an autonomous mowing solution, which the really cool thing about that, it utilizes the same exact cameras that are on our autonomous tractors, same receivers, same solution on a, commercial mowing package. So that is coming to us. We don't have a date from John Deere when that's coming. Just received some further information on what that looks like. And at this point, John Deere is looking for some test cooperators that would run it still manually. But what that does is it allows the cameras to look and see and provide those images back to that algorithm to make that solution come to market faster. If you're interested in that, let us know. But that is coming. And when you think about where autonomy is going, and it isn't just large ag. John Deere is focusing on the ag and turf market both holistically and
construction.
And construction, yes, there is a construction dump truck as well. So it is a holistic package that allows the algorithms, again, to test other solutions and those, a person standing in a construction pit versus a field is a different view for the camera, but at the end of the day, it knows that's a person and it can get better over time from that perspective.
And having people that are willing to let this unit get exposure to other situations will only improve the technology, so it can get rolled out and continuous improvement throughout the process.
All right, well, Troy, Isabel, thank you, and I do want to thank the rest of our Precision Ag team too. That's really dove into autonomy this year and been very successful at it.
It was definitely a group effort, so thanks for everyone if you helped us out, and we had a lot of help on the Deere side too. Right. So it was definitely a learning experience for all of us. So both internally and then thanks to all the customers that allowed us to bring this out to them and showcase it. And hopefully it kind of sparks some interest. And a lot of them had a light bulb moment, and they can definitely see this in their operation in the future. So.
Sure. Now I know, sorry, one more story. One of the customers we went out to they took their kid out of school to come see it and had to get him back for lunchtime. So pretty amazing even seeing the youth excited about it and how the technology has helped us. So, but thank you again for your work with Autonomy this year. And thanks for being part of the FarmCast this time. But please reach out to us if you have any questions about Autonomy, about how it works, what's right for your farm, and we'd be happy to answer those questions. We will have our autonomous solutions to have you take a look at, touch, and feel at our High Plains Ag Expo, which is February 25th in Greeley, Colorado. So look forward to seeing you there and look forward to see you on the next edition of the FarmCast.